Jonathan Taylor is definitely going to end this season as the number one all-time player for the Indianapolis Colts as far as rushing touchdowns go. All right, welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10s for Monday. Hope you had a good weekend, enjoyed the football. Hopefully your team won. My team did not play, so my team did not lose. So that's something anyway. Yeah, so today for Monday, we've got quite a few top 10s to look at. Various players who either made it into the top 10 or moved up in the top 10 for their team or for the NFL. In fact, we do have a couple of players that moved up as far as an NFL record goes. So we'll take a look at those. There's quite a few of them. And like I said, so we'll go through all those. Tomorrow we'll look at players for the last week, who are the top 10 players who moved into the top 10 for the season, and we'll see how that went. But today, let's get started with the top 10s for various teams, or for various players on various teams. And we'll start with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett had 5 sacks in his game. Now, unfortunately for him, it was in a loss. The Cleveland Browns were not able to win their game despite the efforts of Myles Garrett. Yeah, so the Cleveland Browns lost pretty handily, 32-13. But in that game, let me get to it here. Let me move this up here. In that game, Drake May was sacked 6 times. 5 of those were by Myles Garrett. So that was good enough to put him in a tie with a lot of other players, but at 9th all time for the Cleveland Browns in most sacks in a single game. Now, for the Cleveland Browns, actually for NFL too, I believe, Derek Thomas holds the record with 7 sacks in a single game, which also happened to be a loss way back in 1990. Interestingly, Derek Thomas, the only player on the team that's actually Khalil Mack had 6 sacks one time and 5 sacks. But Derek Thomas had 7 sacks in 1990. And then 8 years later, in 1998, he had 6 sacks. Yeah, so Myles Garrett, 5 sacks out of the 6 that they put on Drake May. They could not stop him. Unfortunately, like I said, it wasn't good enough at all to help the Cleveland Browns win the game. Their quarterback was not too good. He threw 2 interceptions and had not only sacked once, but just didn't have a good game at all. But good for Myles Garrett in that game. All right, now let's start looking at some of the other stats. So for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield. Now, we're still on the sack situation, but this time it's the quarterback being sacked. Baker Mayfield was sacked 3 times in this game, despite the fact that they did win the game. And let me find that game. I got to find a better way to do this, but I can't bring them all up. Maybe I can just get the scores. All right. Buccaneers, they won 23-3, so it wasn't really a close game either. But he was tied going into this game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all-time list for 5th with Steve DeBerg, who played way back in the 80s and early 90s, with 94 sacks apiece. So Baker Mayfield was sacked 3 times in this game. He's got 97. Next up for him, in a category obviously you don't want to be at the top of, but next up for him is 4th place Josh Freeman, who played from 2009 to 2013. He had 110 sacks. So it'll be hopefully for Baker Mayfield, quite a few games before he's able to reach 110 sacks. All right. Now, looking at the Philadelphia Eagles in their game, Dallas Goedert. This is interesting because you would think it would be somebody else other than Dallas Goedert. But Dallas Goedert for the Philadelphia Eagles, who won their game 38-20 over the New York Giants. I tell you, the Giants, they just can't catch a break. They bring in Jackson Dart, which has been such an uplift, and him and Cam Scatterbo. But in the process, they lose Malik Neighbors, their number 1 wide receiver. And now Cam Scatterbo is out. They just can't catch a break. And they ended up losing this game 38-20. I don't know that they would have won if Scatterbo had played the whole game, but still. Now, what's interesting about Dallas Goedert is he's number 7, and now he's tied for 6 with Deshaun Jackson, who played all the way up to 2020 with 379 receptions. So with the 3 that Dallas Goedert got last Sunday, he now has 379 to tie Deshaun Jackson. Now, next up for him is another tight end, Brent Selleck, who played from 2007 to 2017 with 398. Now, what's interesting about this, if I was to say to you, well, which Philadelphia Eagles receivers in the top 10? I don't think you'd say Dallas Goedert. I think you might say Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. Well, neither one of those are. Now, Devontae Smith only needs, I think, 11 more receptions, and he will move into the top 10. So he's gaining quite quickly on Dallas Goedert, but still at this point in time, Dallas Goedert is the leading receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles all time, I should say. Now, another one for the Eagles in this victory that they had was their coach, Nick Sirianni. He is one game away from tying Dick Vermeil for 3rd place all time in Philadelphia Eagles coaching victory. So now with that one, he has 54 to tie Dick Vermeil. They both have 54. Next up for him is Greasy Neal, who was the coach from 1941 to 1950. He's got 63. The only way he's going to catch him this season is if they win all of their last 9 games, which is a possibility, but probably highly improbable. But that'll be next up for him, and more likely than not, that'll be next year when he catches Greasy Neal. Now, Andy Reid winning as coach with 130, so that's quite a ways away for Nick Sirianni. Even at 10 games, 10 wins a season, it's going to be another 7 years at least till he catches Andy Reid. So those are a couple of Philadelphia Eagles. Now we'll look at another team here, the Denver Broncos. What a game they had last week. And this week it wasn't quite the same. So it was still very high scoring for the Denver Broncos. They scored 44 points to win 44-24 over the Dallas Cowboys, which is good with them because they're going to have to stay ahead of Kansas City, which will probably start winning more than they're losing. Now in this game, top 10 career receptions for the Denver Broncos. Courtland Sutton came into the game in 7th place, needed 3 to tie Vance Johnson for 6th. He actually got 4. So he now has 416 receptions for the Denver Broncos, which puts him into 6th place, 1 ahead of Vance Johnson. He's been moving up this list pretty steadily so far this season. And now, next up for him is Ed McCaffrey, who played for the team from 1995 to 2003. That's 462 that he has. So it'll be a few games. I don't doubt that he'll do it this season. I mean, he needs 46 to do it. So let's see. If you average 5 games, you'd have to average at least 5 to 6, 5 point something to catch Ed McCaffrey this season. That's as far as it's going to get because Lionel Taylor's next with 543. That'll definitely be a next year number to look for. When you get higher up, it gets a little more difficult to reach each level. But good for Courtland Sutton in that victory to get those receptions. Now, also for the Denver Broncos in the same process, Bo Nix has already just made it into the top 10. Incredibly. Now, John Elway has 300 touchdown passes, which is the all-time number by far, even over Peyton Manning. But Russell Wilson had 42. He was 10th all-time for the team. Bo Nix had 4 touchdown passes in this game. Didn't throw for that many yards, 247, but he did have 4 touchdown passes to jump or basically leapfrog over Russell Wilson. So now Bo Nix has 44 touchdown passes for the Denver Broncos. Next up for him is Kyle Orton with 49, which definitely he can do. Give him 2 or 3 games or so, probably 3 games. He's not going to get 4 a game again. And he will move up into 9th. There's several players. He can move as far as 6th this season easily. Jay Cutler's in sixth with 54, so he only needs 10 to catch him. So definitely something he'll do before the end of the season. We'll just see how much farther he gets after that. All right, so there's a couple of Denver Broncos. Now, Cleveland Browns, back to them. We did have the one with Myles Garrett, like I mentioned. And like I said, the Cleveland Browns lost their game. Now, David Njoku, he only needed one catch. He was in a tie with Reggie Rucker for 7th all-time in receiving touchdowns. And he just needed one more receiving touchdown to move up to tie Max Speedle with 33 apiece. So they each have 33. Max Speedle played way back 1946 to 1952. So what's really funny about this list, Gary Collins is number one all-time for Cleveland Browns receiving touchdowns with 70. He played from 1962 to 1971. In fact, it wasn't until Braylon Edwards, who played from 2005 to 2009, he was the first player from the 21st century to even make it into the top 10 on this list, and he's ninth with 28, just barely made it. He's tied for ninth with Michael Jackson, who played from 1991 to 95. So everybody that David Njoku can pass, which he won't pass anybody else, Ozzie Newsome, who played from 1978 to 1990, has 47. He's not going to catch him. I don't even know how many more, if he'll ever catch Ozzie Newsome, in fact, because David Njoku's been playing since 2017, and I don't think he'll get enough. He may. We'll just have to see how he holds up, how many more years he's going to play, but he's already played now 8 years. But like I said, what's interesting, there's nobody new on this list, nobody from the 21st century, except for now David Njoku is now in 8th. But the top 7 players, top 6, I should say, I mean, the most recent is Ozzie Newsome in 1990 when he ended his career. That's how long ago these Cleveland Brown records are. And they're not even, I'm not even talking about a ton of receiving touchdowns. 70's the highest number. And yet there's nobody making much of a push. And there's not going to be anybody even after David Njoku at this point anyway. We'll see how Jerry Jeudy does, but really it's going to be a while. So that's a look at the Cleveland Browns receiving touchdowns, a category that could really need some help from the newer players coming out. And they need a quarterback. They need a lot in Cleveland, though, so that's something it's going to take some time. Now, next up, Cincinnati Bengals, looking at their top 10. And this game was a wild game. Cincinnati looked like they'd be able to pull it out. New York Jets in the fourth quarter scored 23 points to win this game 39-38. Cleveland, the Cincinnati Bengals really needed this game to stay in touch with the leaders, and it didn't pan out for them. So they are now 3-5. We'll look at that in a couple of days, the records, the standings. But New York Jets finally win a game, and it was quite a game. 39 points for the Jets. That's way more than they'd scored in quite a while. Justin Fields had a pretty decent game. 244 yards, no interceptions, wasn't sacked. He's been one of the leaders in sacks, being sacked. I think he's finally maybe figured out to let go of that ball as early as possible or just run with it. And he didn't actually run. He ran 11 times, but not for that many yards, 31 yards. Now, back to the Cincinnati Bengals in this record. Receiving yards is what we're looking at here. All time for the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase continues his climb up this list. He was in 7th. He had 91 yards receiving in this game to give him now 6,145, which helped him to pass Eddie Brown, who was in 6th. He passed him only by 11 yards, but he did pass him. So he's now in 6th place all time in receiving yards for the Cincinnati Bengals. Next up for him, Chris Collinsworth, who most people probably know as the announcer for football. He's got 6,698, so it's a good 500 plus yards. I do think Jamar Chase will do it this year for sure. 9 games to go. He just needs to average, 60 yards a game, which he's been doing. So at some point, he should be able to move up at least past Collingsworth and maybe even Carl Pickens and Isaac Curtis. That's as far as he's going to get this year and probably for the next couple of years. After that, he starts getting into range to A.J. Green and Chad Johnson, the number 1 and 2 players. And if he stays healthy and well, you never know, but Cincinnati Bengals would be crazy to let Jamar Chase go, and they just need to pay him whatever he is asking. But Jamar Chase, number 6 all-time receiving yards for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, another team that really, actually, I didn't expect them necessarily to win this game, but Houston Texans beat the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are starting to get on a little skid, and the Houston Texans are trying to mount a comeback in their division. Houston Texans beat the San Francisco 49ers 26-15. Now, in that game, Will Anderson, who's been a terror in his short career, him and Danielle Hunter for Houston are pretty tough. But in this game, Will Anderson came into the game in 7th, 1 sack behind Jonathan Grenard, who had been with the team back in 2023. He needed 1. He got 1 sack, so he's now tied for 6th place all time with 23 sacks for the Houston Texans. Next up for him is Antonio Smith, who played from 2009 to 2016. He's got 27.5. So Will Anderson does need 4.5 to catch him. I think he'll at least move up to 4th place because after Smith is Jadeveon Clowney, who had 29. So he only needs 6 sacks the rest of this year. Now, that's not nothing, but for Will Anderson, he's been pretty good. He's not pretty good. He's really good, and I think it's very possible he could get 6 more sacks in the next 9 games to move up into 4th all-time for the Houston Texans in sacks. All right, next up, Indianapolis Colts. In receiving yards, Michael Pittman. I tell you, these Indianapolis Colts, now it was only the Tennessee Titans, but they did handle them pretty easily, 38-14 in this game. And so they continue to be the best team record-wise. I mean, I'm sure people are going to question whether they're the best team, but as far as record goes, they are the number 1 team in the NFL with a 7-1 record. Michael Pittman was in 10th place all-time in receiving yards for the Indianapolis Colts. He had 95 yards. He now has 4,916 yards, which jumps him over the tight end Dallas Clark, who played from 2003 to 2011. So he is now in 9th place. Next up for him, about 210 yards away, is John Mackey. John Mackey played in the 60s and early 70s, so should be able to catch him. After that, that's probably it, because there's then another 700 yards before he moves up another level. But he should be able to make it to 8th place all time for the Indianapolis Colts. Give him next year, he has a good chance to move up as high as 5th if he plays for the Colts and he's healthy for the season. So good job for Michael Pitt. He's been a good player, Michael Pittman. He puts up the numbers despite whoever happens to be the quarterback. It's been a myriad of quarterbacks for Pittman that he's had to deal with one way or the other. Also for the Indianapolis Colts, somebody that's just going crazy as far as scoring, touchdowns, and so forth, and that's Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor had another great day. Only carried the ball 12 times, had 153 yards, 2 touchdowns again. He's already had 3 games with 3. He is putting up some touchdown numbers. We're going to start looking at that on a season level as he starts to really approach numbers that would be top 10 all time in the NFL, not just for the Indianapolis Colts. So we'll start looking at that as we get halfway through the season. But Jonathan Taylor is in 10th, was in 10th. He only needed, well, honestly, this is in scoring. I'm looking at scoring right now. Jonathan Taylor needed only 4 points. Obviously, he scores a touchdown. That's 6. He only needed 4 points to pass Raymond Berry, who was with the team way back in 1955. He had 408 points. Jonathan Taylor scored 12 points, so he is now 416th to move into 9th all-time in scoring for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, next up for him is another running back, Ernie Jennings, who was a great running back from 1999 to 2005. He's next up. He's got 458 points. So that will take Jonathan Taylor a little while, even at several games. He's not going to get 2 touchdowns every game, but it won't be long before he can catch Ernie Jennings, another great running back for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, another number here for Jonathan Taylor, and this is where he is really moving, is in the touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. So he had another 2 again. He was in third place. He needed 2 to tie Lenny Moore for second all-time Indianapolis Colts rushing touchdowns. He got the 2. He's now got 63. So Lenny Moore played back in the 50s and 60s. He had 63. They both have 63. Next up, at number 1 is Ernie Jennings with 64. So Jonathan Taylor is definitely going to end this season as the number 1 all-time player for the Indianapolis Colts as far as rushing touchdowns go. He just needs 1 more to tie, 2 more to take the lead all time. He has been flying up this list this season. So really, he's one of the keys between the unexpected, how good Daniel Jones has been unexpectedly, and just Jonathan Taylor. They complement each other, and it just will look good. I mean, Daniel Jones, he only had 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then you tack that on with 153 yards that Jonathan Taylor had. And they just put up numbers that, and it was a Tennessee Titans. So, and then with a decent defense that they have, it's a good defense. You may not consider it the best in the NFL, but between how good they are on offense and how good they are on defense, they just are all-round good team right now. All right, let's look at the Miami Dolphins. This was a game I don't think, Miami, I didn't expect them to win. They've been in such chaos this season. It's just crazy watching them and trying to figure out what's going on. And then Atlanta, they're the most up and down team. And this is a game, though, where same with the Buffalo Bills beating, I think it was the Carolina Panthers. They didn't have their starting quarterback, and there was a big difference. Kirk Cousins started for Atlanta and just didn't look good at all. Only 21 for 31, 173 yards. Just didn't look good. On the other hand, Tua Tagovailoa looked really good. Very different than the previous week. 20 for 26, 205 yards. That's all, but only 6 incompletions. He was really hitting the spots. 4 touchdown passes. And one of those touchdown passes went to Jalen Waddle, who needed just 1 touchdown pass to help him move up into a tie for 9th with now 4 people counting himself. So Jalen Waddle now has 24 touchdown passes to tie at the latest Devontae Parker, Anthony Fasano, and Kenny Stills, all with 24 touchdown passes. Next up for him is Bruce Hardy, who played 1978 to 1989 with 25 touchdown passes. So only needs 1 to catch him. And then after that, the next one up is Tyreek Hill, who has 27. So Jalen Waddle has caught Tyreek Hill in receiving yards and now is moving up to catch him in touchdown passes. I don't expect to see Tyreek Hill. Well, he won't be back this season. But I don't expect to see him back with Miami next year. All right. So good win for the Miami Dolphins, who definitely needed it. I don't think they can make a run for the playoffs. That was only their second win, but this coach, he's got to be on the hot seat, and Tua's on the hot seat. They got to play well to get back into this game and back, to hold on to their positions, see how they do by the end of the season. All right. Another one for, like I said, for Miami Dolphins in receptions, that's Jalen Waddle. He only needed 1 to catch Tyreek Hill. He's got 5. He now has 344 receptions all time for the Miami Dolphins, which is good enough now to put him into 8th place, bumping Tyreek Hill down to 9th. Tyreek Hill had 340. So Jalen Waddle, 344 receptions in his career with the Miami Dolphins. Next up is Tony Nathan with 383. So only needs 39 more. That shouldn't be a problem by, sometime before the end of the season. He'll pass him for sure, I would think. That's next up for him. All right, let's take a look at the Buffalo Bills. As I was mentioning, the Buffalo Bills, they handily won their game against the Carolina Panthers, 40-9. And like I said, Bryce Young did not play. He was injured. Andy Dalton came in and was horrible. 16 for 24, 175 yards and an interception. Just wasn't good at all. The running backs did well. Rico Dowdle only carried the ball 8 times, had 54 yards. Obviously, they might have thought about carrying it more, but by halftime, they were already down 19-3. After the third quarter, Buffalo already had 40 points, and the game was basically over. In fact, Mitch Trubisky came in a little bit, in the end of the game here. Josh Allen only threw the ball 19 times. James Cook is the guy. Big game for him, 216 yards rushing. One was 64 yards. So in this game, despite the fact that Josh Allen only threw for 163 yards, he only rushed for 7 yards, but on 3 carries, but 2 of those carries were for touchdowns. All that did for him was to continue to move him up as the number 1 leader in Buffalo Bills history with 70 touchdowns now. He's number 1 there. Thurman Thomas, who he passed, has 65. But James Cook was in 10th right now, tied with LaShawn McCoy with 25. He had 2 touchdowns himself. So Allen had 2. James Cook had 2 touchdowns rushing. James Cook now has 27th, which puts him in a tie with Travis Henry at 7th, in 7th place all time for the Buffalo Bills. Henry played in the early 2000s. Now, next up, Ray Carlton, who played in the 60s. He has 29. Won't be long. James Cook is going to move all the way up to 4th by the end of this year. He only needs 4 to catch Cookie Gilchrist, who also played in the 60s. He has 31. He'll catch all those players, and that'll be as far as he makes it this year. Probably it will take him at least 2 more years to catch O.J. Simpson, who had 57. But James Cook has 27 right now, and he'll move past Ray Carlton, Fred Jackson, and Cookie Gilchrist sometime this season to move into 4th all-time for the Buffalo Bills. Now, Josh Allen's number 1 already. His next goal is to catch Cam. My mind went blank. I forgot Cam. I'll think of it later. But who's the number 1 leader in rushing touchdowns by quarterback all time in the NFL. Josh Allen's second. He needs 5 more to catch him. But Jalen Hurts is right behind Josh Allen in that category. All right. So like I said, James Cook also, not only the touchdowns, but in rushing yards. With that 216 yards, he wasn't quite in the top 10. Not only did he move into the top 10, he moved up into 8th place. He passed C.J. Spiller, Willis McGahee, and Ray Carlton, all of those players, to move all the way up to 8th place with 3,391 yards rushing for the Buffalo Bills. So he's now in 8th. Next up, LaShawn McCoy, one of the better running backs for the Buffalo Bills. He had 3,814 yards, so he should catch him. It's going to take a little while. He needs 450 yards or so. So it's going to take a little bit of time to catch Travis Henry. Now, Josh Allen had another 7 yards, but not quite enough to pass Joe Gibbs for 4th place. Right now, Josh Allen's in 5th. For him, Joe Gibbs is next. He needs another 42 yards to catch Joe Cribbs, who was also a pretty good running back for the Buffalo Bills back in the 80s. All right. Buffalo Bills had some numbers put up this week. All right. Next up, New England Patriots. And it's kind of like Bo Nix and Drake May here. Despite the fact that these are new quarterbacks, they're already starting to pop up on the top 10 list for their team. So the New England Patriots handled the Cleveland Browns pretty well. It was a close game at halftime, but third quarter, the New England Patriots put 21 points on the Browns, and that wrapped up the game right there. New England Patriots beat the Cleveland Browns 32-13, so they'll stay in first place in their division. But Drake May, he needed 256 yards to pass Hugh Millen for 8th place all time. He had 282, so he is now in 8th place all time with 4,302 yards passing. That's as far as he'll get this year. It'll be next year sometime to catch Mac Jones in 7th, who has 8,918. But Drake May, only in his second year, has been able to break into the top 10 for New England Patriots in passing yards, now in 8th place. Good for him. All right, a few more here. New England. Now, one that you don't want to see him on, but he's already on it. Drake May sacked 6 times. Like I said, 5 of those by Myles Garrett. So he sacked 6 times. He needed only 1 to pass Mike Taliaferro, who played in 1968 to 1970. He had 57. Drake May now has 62. Puts him in 9th place. Next up for him is Mac Jones, who had 84. So you're hoping, as a New England Patriot fan, that he doesn't catch Mac Jones this year. He needs, 22 more. That's quite a bit. You don't want to see that for him. But if he keeps getting sacked 6 times a game, he'll definitely catch Mac Jones. All right. Now, looking at all-time records. A couple more left, and we're done for the day. But Derrick Henry, he had been tied with Walter Payton with 110 rushing touchdowns. That was good for 5th place all time. He now has 5th place all by himself, bumping Walter Payton to 6th because he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He's got 112 rushing touchdowns. He needs 8 now to catch Adrian Peterson, who's in 4th with 120 rushing touchdowns. So that's his next target. I'm not sure he's going to get there this season, but if he plays another season, he should be able to catch Adrian Peterson and Marcus Allen, who has 123. Oh, you never know. I mean, Derrick Henry had 16 last year, and if he can get on a run, and this game, they finally, not that he racked up a bunch of yards, he had 71, but the Ravens realized they need to play Derrick Henry. He rushed him 21 times in the game, and I think it's just better for the Ravens if they can do that. So we'll see how Derrick Henry does moving forward here in rushing touchdowns. NFL, all-time NFL. Last one, all-time NFL. Christian McCaffrey continues to climb up. He wasn't even in the top 10 in running back receptions all-time in the NFL. But now with 580, he had 3 receptions to put him at 580. He passed Keith Byers, who played in the 80s and 90s. He had 578. So now with 580, Christian McCaffrey's in 8th place all-time running back receptions. Next up, probably get him next week. Ronnie Harmon is in 7th with 582. So he only needs 2 receptions to catch Ronnie Harmon. He'll move into 7th. Now, Alvin Kamara right now is in 4th place, but with 500 I'm not quite sure, but he has 598 coming into the game, but wasn't anywhere near catching LaDainian Tomlinson, who has 624. So I didn't track that one. All right. That wraps up a look at all the players. Quite a few people for their team, or for the NFL, in fact, not setting records necessarily, but moving higher in the top 10 all-time numbers. Pretty good weekend for that. All right, that is a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats. Appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe. You can find me on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. And when you do go there, if you watch the live, I'm going to be posting all these top 10 charts to go along with what I mentioned. So you'll be able to see all the players and exactly where everybody is on the charts, as I'll put them up on that that video podcast. You can also find me on Spotify, Apple, and any podcast app you might use. You can also email me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com if you want to. But for this Monday, top 10s for Monday, That is a wrap for this episode. So until tomorrow, I'm out. Have a good day.